just outside Saffron Walden in the Essex countryside, sits an estate that has had a troubled past. This estate is the Audley End Estate, one of the most grandest estates in Essex. To the casual tourist, it is a triumph of Jacobean architecture. But to the historian, it is a monument to the Howard family's ambition. But to those who have lived and those who have worked within these walls, it is definitely something else. It is a vessel for the dead. To understand why this house is so haunted, we have to go back further than the stone you see today. We have to go back to the year 1139. This land was not meant for a palace. It was meant for prayer. Walden Abbey stood here for 400 years. Imagine the Benedictine monks walking these grounds in total silence. For centuries, the genius loci, the spirit of the place, was one of devotion, ritual, and death. Monks were buried beneath the very soil where the Parterre Gardens now sit. When Henry VIII began the dissolution of the monasteries back in 1530, he didn't just close a building, he ripped the soul out of the community. Sir Thomas Audley, the King's Lord Chancellor, was the man who facilitated the legal theft of the church lands. As a reward, the king gave him the abbey. Just think of the psychological impact this would have had on the local people, especially back in the 16th century. They would have watched as their sacred space was completely gutted. The bells were completely melted down, and the altars would have been smashed. Thomas Audley built his first house directly on top of the ruins. Now, in folklore, building a home on top of a desecrated religious site is the ultimate invitation for a haunting. The Audley family line eventually merged with the Howards, one of the most powerful and tragic families in English history. If you want to know why the air feels so heavy in the Great Hall, you have to look at the 4th Duke of Norfolk. He was the richest man in England, but he still wanted more. He plotted to marry Mary, Queen of Scots, and overthrow Elizabeth I. But he failed, and in 1572 he was led to the executioner's block. His son, Thomas Howard, was left with a tarnished name and a desperate need to prove his worth. Between 1605 and 1614, Thomas Howard spent a staggering £200,000. This was to build the house we see today, though back then it was 3 times larger. It was built for one purpose: to impress King James I. Howard was the Lord Treasurer of England. He had his hand in the royal pocket. In 1619, the king finally realised where his money was going. Howard and his wife Catherine were charged with embezzlement and thrown into the Tower of London. They were released, but they were broken. They spent their final years in this massive, drafty palace, surrounded by the ghosts of their lost reputation. Just imagine being the first Earl of Suffolk back in the 1620s, walking through the Long Gallery. At the time, it would have been the longest in England. He has no money left to light his candles. He is walking in the dark, listening to the wind howl through the Essex countryside, knowing his family is disgraced. Many believe this residual energy of failure and pride is what powers the hauntings in the Great Hall today. One of the strangest things about Audley End is what is not there. In the 1700s, the house was so large it was impossible to maintain. Entire wings were torn down. 3 sides of the original Great Hall were demolished. We're going to mention the stone tape theory again. The stone tape theory suggests that minerals in the stone and the soil can record high emotional events, like a magnetic tape. When people see a ghost in the gardens of Audley End, they often report a figure walking through a hedge, or appearing to walk 2 feet above the ground. When you check the old blueprints, you realise that where the hedge is now used to be a corridor. Where the ghost is floating, there used to be a floor. These aren't conscious spirits. They are recordings of the past playing back over and over again. Let's talk about something they call the oak screen. It is an absolute masterpiece of Jacobean carving. Look at the faces carved into the wood. Staff members have reported for decades that the expressions on these faces seem to change. One night, a face looks natural, and the other, it looks as if it's screaming. Is it just the flickering of the candlelight? Or is it the wood itself saturated with the history of the room? We're going to now move forward in time to the 1800s. The Braybrook family now owned the house, while the nobility lived upstairs in the Robert Adam designed luxury. The real drama was happening downstairs. The Victorian service wing at Audley End is one of the most intact in the world. It's also, according to many, the most terrifying. There is said to be a laundry maid who died of exhaustion, or perhaps a tragic accident. Visitors have reported the distinct smell of soap and wet linen in rooms that haven't seen a washboard in 100 years. There is still a dark, lingering omen that hangs over the house at Audley End. This is a much darker, more specific part of history. In 1850, the Braybrook's son, Henry and Grey Neville, went to fight in the Crimean War. They were young, brave, but doomed. Back at the house, a package arrived from the front lines. It contained a Russian's rat's tail, a grotesque war trophy. Shortly after, news arrived that both brothers had in fact been killed. That rat's tail is still in Audley End House today. It is part of the house's collection. It is said to be a cursed object. Since the day it arrived, the library where the brothers spent most of their youth has been a site of intense activity. Tourists feel a crushing weight bearing down on their chests. Now, this is very strange because as soon as we entered the library, I complained of my chest feeling crushed. Now, this is very interesting. I didn't see the rat's tail, but maybe next time I'm visiting Audley End, I can find that rat's tail. Audley End House most definitely has paranormal layers. Not only has it been a monastery, a royal palace, and a family home, it now stands as an absolutely stunning museum. But more than that, it's still a graveyard for all those ambitions. Whether it's the Duke of Norfolk, or the Earl of Suffolk, or even the Braybrooke sons that lost their lives, the house still refuses to let go. If you're ever in Saffron Walden, definitely take a visit to Audley End House. You feel the energy as soon as you enter the Great Hall. You aren't just looking at the house, you're looking at a memory that is still breathing. And that's it for today's episode. As always, stay spooky, and I'll see you on the next one.
I think we might have someone following us from the chapel now. We just entered this bedroom and it's come up with preacher. Very impressive rooms. The paintings. So it would have been very low lit in here because everything would have been candle lit. If we said now it's come up with something else. Knock. Could you knock for us? Could you make a knock on the door for me? Can't come to one of these houses without a bit of dress up, can you? What do you think, guys? It's such a shame that we can't do anything paranormal in there with all these English heritage workers sort of standing there watching every move in the house. So unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of paranormal stuff happening, but we still got to see a fantastic stately home.